All right. Well, it's 12 o'clock and I've got a lot to get through, and I'll reiterate some of the things that I've just said. If you are able to turn your camera on, that would be fantastic, because I love talking to people's faces and not to a black screen with a name across the front. If this was one of my classes, we'd go around and introduce ourselves, but with over 350 of you, that would take the hour, so we're not going to do that. But I am going to open up with a word of prayer. If everybody would just take a moment with me, a moment of silence with me, and pray with me. And then we'll go ahead and get started. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come together and look for ways to co-labor together. We thank you that there are so many opportunities for us to extend our classrooms beyond the four walls. Lord, we pray that you give me wisdom and ability to answer questions well. And I pray that you give everyone here a calm, a comfort, wisdom, peace, and even some joy and delight in this new adventure that's before us. We do ask that you have your hand of protection upon all of the people of this world who are facing an unprecedented pandemic that is occurring. We pray that you give our medical professionals rest and strength for their bodies as they try to treat and cope with this problem. I pray that you give our government wisdom and that you bless us and our communities as we are able to bless each other. We ask all of these things in your name.
I don't know if my computer is going to be best for Zoom.
Okay, so the first thing I'd love is if all of you would go ahead and mute yourselves where you are. Not because I don't want to hear from you. If you have a question, please feel free to unmute yourselves. There is a way for you to raise your digital hand. If you go to look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there should be a way for you to raise your digital hand, which I will do my best to keep my eye out for that over on my screen. Couple of other things with Zoom. If you move your cursor around and you go to the top right-hand corner, you'll see it either says gallery view or speaker view. If it says speaker view, leave it alone. If it says gallery view, click on it, and then you can see everybody on this, it turned into a huge Brady Bunch video screen. Okay, so keep it on this way where you can see all of us and not just one great big screen with a few of us at the top. That's going to be something you'll want to tell your students if you're going to use Zoom for your class as well. You'll also see some little reactions down there at the bottom. David just gave me, from Covenant Dallas, he just gave me a thumbs up emoji, which is very encouraging. Thank you for that. Holly gave me one as well. Yeah, so feel free to, there's all these little things that Zoom provides for us here. Somebody's sharing their screen. I'd love it if you would stop sharing your screen. I'm going to do stop participant screen sharing. So maybe don't play with that one. Everybody can see what you're sharing then. But as you can see, I could stop that participant sharing. So as the host of a meeting, you can mute anyone, you can turn their video off, you can stop sharing somebody's screen. I have my student Zoom portal set up differently than I have this Zoom portal set up, because I usually meet with adults in this Zoom portal, and I don't meet with students. So things like screen sharing are on because I trust adults to share their screen appropriately. I do not trust students, and neither should you, to share their screen appropriately. This is going to be kind of a fun novelty for all of your kids, and it's just a new frontier of ways to mess with you. Okay, so do your best to think through what it would be like to be a kid who has cabin fever, right? Who knows more about technology than you do, and who is trying to still show off for his friends because he can't hang out with them on a regular basis anymore. And I don't mean to say he in like the specific gender. I mean he like neutral. Okay, all right. Because I've had plenty of girls who have been just as creative as the boys have been. All right. So today I'm going to take you through this how to do education online. We do this every day. Love it if we keep ourselves muted if at all possible, because we can't hear absolutely everything. And it's easier to manage with a group of 15 than it is with a group of 350, because I can't go track down the person whose video is not muted. So if you could just keep yourselves muted, that would be great. This is going to take about an hour to go through. I will be sharing this recording with you in a follow-up email. I will share my slides with you and my email address with you. I mentioned before, I'm not committing to be your continuing ongoing tech support from henceforth. But I will, Zoom US, Zoom.us is fantastic for tech support, and I'll talk about that a little bit as well. But any high-level questions you have, I'll be more than happy to try to answer those via email. Please keep in mind that we are managing our own things on our own front, so I might not be able to.
Why can I not hear anything?
But I'll do my best. So the first thing we'll do here is how to do education online. You've got steps, 5 steps that you're going to go through.
I should be hearing someone talking. Do you have any idea?
And if you could mute yourselves again, I would really appreciate it because we can hear you.
How do I turn some sound on?
Hang on a second. Somebody is still talking here. If you, I don't mind if you talk, but
How do I turn the sound on?
Is this live?
Yes, it is.
It is live. We can hear you. If you could mute yourselves, that would be great. Let's try one more time. Okay, so there's 5 steps that you'll want to take. The first is you need to secure your teacher's Zoom accounts, and you can do that by going to zoom.us. Okay, if you are an administrator, you'll want to take care of getting your Zoom accounts. I assume that many of you are teachers and you have a Zoom account because you're here. But if you're an administrator here and you're just getting started, that's going to be the first thing that you'll need to do. The second is you're going to need to train your teachers to use Zoom, and that's what I'm going to do a little bit of today. I've already given you just a couple of tips with, you know, getting the gallery view on, and that there are some of the features that are down at the bottom that you can play with, but please don't do the screen sharing just now. And we're also going to talk about communication into parents. You're probably going to need to go through a little bit of like an open house kind of a situation again, where you're providing parents with sort of the rules and what to expect in your new classroom. Just like you may have done in your other classroom, you're going to need to talk to them about what things are going to look like in your new classroom. Your administrators will probably give you some idea about what kinds of things that you're going to say, like how long your classes are going to be, and you know how frequently you'll meet. But you'll want to express to them what your expectations are as we kind of move into this new world of an online classroom. The third thing that we'll want to do is talk about how to create dynamic and engaging online classes, because you don't want them to be static talking head kind of situations. That's what everybody thinks that online classes are like, and they're not. They don't have to be that way, but a lot of it will have to do with your creativity. And we're also going to talk to parents about like how to make sure that you don't have any technology problems. That might be more of an admin task, but let's face it, teachers are usually the ones that are on the front lines of answering any parent questions. So you'll probably get that question too, and you'll want to have a good answer for why can't Johnny get into the classroom? The fourth is I would really strongly suggest that you host an orientation day, and you can split this up by maybe homerooms, and make sure that everybody practices getting into your online classroom before the very first day when you're trying to you know, host an actual class. You're probably going to waste that class period. You won't get any content covered unless you host an orientation, and we'll talk about that. And then you'll be ready to really launch your classes, and you should feel like you've got everything that you need to do so. So I'll pause right there and just ask for a quick second if anybody has any. We're going to go over all of that. That's not the lesson. But does anybody have any kind of high-level questions here before I go any further? And if you could mute yourselves, that would be fantastic. Let me see here if I can see who's not muted. Looks like some of you just might not realize that you need to mute. Yeah, any background, anything that's, let's see here. Chris, Diana, Galaxy.
Our character. Our character keeps making a lot of noise.
All right, no questions? We'll keep going. Let's see here. Again, it's a very different when you've got 15 people and you can see all of them all in one place versus 9 pages of attendees. Your classes won't be as big as this session. Again, if you've got that person who just screamed in the background, if you could mute yourself because we can hear it and it's kind of talking over me and making it difficult. You want to secure the Zoom accounts. Your school, Zoom is giving out free accounts, basic accounts. You will not have all of the bells and whistles that come with a pro account unless your school buys a pro account. And I would recommend, if this is just a 2-week problem, that basic accounts will probably be fine. But But if it's not going to be just a 2-week problem, that you might want to go with the pro account. Okay, a pro account is going to give you the ability to well, first of all, a basic account is going to automatically shut off after 45 minutes. So if your classes are extending, if you're going to have your online classes run, 45 minutes right up to the wire, or just even a minute after, it will turn off on you. So you're going to want to be sure that if it's more than just a couple day thing, that a couple weeks here, that you might want to go ahead and get pro accounts for your entire team. I'm going to keep going. I do see that Stephanie, Jed, and Clay have a question. They've got their digital hands up, which is fine, but I might be answering some of your questions, so just let me get a little bit further through the talk and see if I answer any of the questions that you have, but I promise I will be happy to take questions as well. The next thing I want to talk here about settings for your students. When you want to, if you're an administrator, you're going to want to go into Zoom, and you're going to want to universally turn on and turn off some things. I would recommend that you turn off chat after the orientation. You might want to leave chat on for the orientation, so that if parents are struggling with something, they do have a way to communicate with you and let you know that they're struggling. But you also want to, when it's time to start hosting classes, you're going to want to turn off chat. If you think, oh no, I think it would be great to have the chat feature on, because then kids could kind of, give out some information, they could ask me questions or whatever. I do want to strongly suggest that you not do that. It's very difficult to have a train of thought going and then have a question pop up, and you can't control what that question is, and everybody else can see what that question is too. And if it's kind of, off in some way, or if it's a rabbit trail or somebody's just being funny, you've just disrupted the whole classroom and kids are now distracted. So I would really suggest turning chat off and have people just raise their hands. You're going to have one screen of kids, not, again, 9 screens of people to try to manage the way I'm trying to manage a huge group right now. You certainly want to turn off private chat, and you want to turn off remote control. I can't stress that enough. Turn off private chat, because that means kids can privately chat one-on-one throughout the class period without you knowing. And you want to turn off remote control. Remote control gives them access on your computer. Okay, you don't want them assuming control of your computer and opening files on your computer. So turn off remote control. Okay, I even have some teachers who actually, how depending on if you have a Mac or a PC, you don't have to log in as yourself. You can log in, you can create a different user account, like as if you had another child in your home and you wanted to create a user account on your computer. You might want to create just a user account that is the one where you keep some documents and files of things that you're going to be teaching with, but isn't access to your email that you always use and your personal messaging and all of that kind of thing. And then make sure Zoom is loaded into that user account, so that you can just host from this more cordoned off, boundaried off space on your computer. And then should something, go awry, nobody would have access to your entire desktop. Okay, so that might be one thing to kind of keep in mind that you're doing. You are going to want to leave screen sharing turned on. Notice I'm toggling back and forth between screen sharing. I created slides, I'm showing them to you, but then I turn it off so that we can talk every once in a while and I can look at you face to face. You're going to want to leave screen sharing on. You'll want to leave the whiteboard turned on, and you'll want to turn on automatic recordings. Okay, those will be saved to the Zoom cloud. There's 2 reasons why I really recommend that you leave recordings on. The first one is for safety purposes. At our school, anytime an adult is meeting with a student, whether 1 to 15 or 1 to 1, we have recordings that are automatically set to turn on, and every session gets recorded. Okay, so that's a really good way to make sure that that you have that, taken care of. The second issue is you're not going to have an opportunity if Joey misses a class to just like have Joey stop by your room as easily. So if Joey does have to be absent for some reason, now you can share that recording with him and he can watch the recording of the class. I only share recordings with my students if they A, need extra help, or B, if they miss the class. I don't tell them that that it's just going to be automatically available, because then they tune out, right? It turns into a TV show, and that's not what you want. You still want interactive and dynamic classes, so only provide those recordings if they've been absent or if they're struggling and they could just really use a review, okay? The other thing that you'll want to turn off is the join before host, okay? You do not want kids coming into the Zoom room and thinking that now they can meet together in the privacy of their rooms at their house or whatever it is without an adult present. Okay, so you want to turn the join before host off so that they can only be meeting together in that room if you're there. Okay, and one of the things that the school or you will need to make sure that you clearly communicate to the families is you are only responsible for the child's online activity while they are in your room. Okay, you are, just because the school is taking their classes digitally does not mean that somehow we are now responsible for when their kids decide to get their own Zoom account and meet with each other privately. The parents still need to monitor that. Parents need to monitor Google Hangouts. The parents need to monitor all of those other things. You are only responsible for what's going on in the classroom when you are physically present in the classroom, and they need to make sure that they still know what their responsibilities are as parents. Okay. You'll also want to discuss etiquette and responsibilities of the students, right? If you didn't allow them to use their cell phones during school hours before, they're not allowed to use their cell phones during school hours now, unless they're using Zoom on their phone. That is a point I should mention, that your students do not need to have a Pro Zoom account. Only the teachers need to have any Pro Zoom account. Students can just log into your Zoom room and they can log in on a phone, a smartphone, a tablet, or on a laptop or a desktop computer. So they shouldn't have to purchase anything in order to be able to come to your classes. The school only needs to purchase the Zoom account or the Pro Zoom account for the teacher, not for the entire student body beyond that, okay? I'll just go through these last 2 points on this slide, and then I'll take a couple of questions. When I said clearly communicate expectations to students, you might want to look at our ScholéAcademy.com website if you want to, and go to our student parent handbook that's there. If you go there, you can see what kind of student expectations we have. Number one, all videos must be turned on. Moving into a digital sphere like this is going to make parents a little bit uncomfortable. And if you have a family who refuses to turn their video on and they don't know who's sitting on the other side of that name and that black screen, it's going to make them nervous. Everybody who's on screen needs to have their video turned on so that it's clear that it's another kid on the other side of that camera. And that'll make everybody's comfort level a lot, just take the heat off and make everybody more comfortable. We are looking for live engagement. So you might want to set the expectation that, hey, we are having discussion. We want you to continue to engage. And that's part of how this class is going to be. It's not a TV show. This is a virtual classroom, and we expect to continue to have lively, interactive, engaging discussion. And you just got to set that expectation. The third thing I'll say about expectations for parents is, especially if they've got little ones or if they're a little bit nervous about this, they might want to be close by, and that's fine, but they should sit off screen. And the reason why they should sit off screen is because especially if you're dealing with teenagers, that teenagers clam up if there's too many adults in the room. Parents can still sit off screen. They can listen to everything that's going on and they can have that comfort zone. Just ask adults to sit off screen so that it doesn't, to the student, feel like, well, we used to be able to have a conversation with our trusted teacher that I know and all of my classmates, and now all of a sudden there's 35 other adults in the room and I don't know who they are and I don't feel like talking anymore. Okay. You might also want parents to just save their comments. If they have something that they want to add, they can email you or message you privately, unless you think it's fine to have a parent chiming in on discussion. If a parent starts chiming in, that quiet kid in class is just going to get even more quiet. So just ask parent, sort of set the expectation for what you want and tell parents where they can be and sort of where we need the classroom to sort of still be preserved. And that should go well if everybody knows what the expectation is. Again, I mentioned the student behavior is going to be the responsibility of the parent now, less so than the teacher. You're only going to be able to be there when the Zoom is on, okay? So you really do want to make sure that it's the parents who understand it's their responsibility. They need to monitor the Zoom usage, as I mentioned, and they should still be really vigilant about online safety and be asking questions and staying in good conversation with their student about that, okay? Something else about the account with Zoom for teachers, I'll just say one last thing on this topic before I move on and take a couple of questions. And that is that if you have two ways to get onto Zoom. Everybody does. For you yourselves as teachers, you can either go onto zoom.us, log into your account, and then click on the meeting that you want to join and come into the classroom that way. Or you can download Zoom as a platform onto your computer. And I would recommend that as a teacher, you download Zoom onto your computer as a platform. And if you're an administrator, I would tell your teachers to all do this. The reason being is everybody that you purchase an account for would be listed there. And you can send out an all teacher message very, very quickly during the day to tell everybody the exact same message through Zoom if you want to. So there's a messaging feature with Zoom as the platform that if you're an administrator and you want to tell everybody, you know, that you have sort of an all points bulletin kind of thing where the whole school is getting the same message all at one time, and you know everybody's teaching at one time, you can send a message through Zoom to everybody who you pay for, right, for all of the licenses that you've purchased, and everybody will get that message if they have Zoom as a downloaded platform on their computer. Okay, so that's a lot of information. And again, this will all be recorded. So if you want to go back and listen to something again, you absolutely can. But I'll pause there for a quick second. Clay, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, thank you. One piece of information and two questions. Thanks so much. The Zoom has removed the 40-minute limit for group meetings for schools in recognition of this crisis.
Okay.
So if you email them from your school account and request that to be removed, I did that on Monday, and now that's removed from all of our group accounts. So now there's no limit on how long you can meet in a group.
Perfect.
Just want to mention that. Second, I thought that there was a feature on chat where you could disable all chat except for so that students wouldn't see the chat and only the teacher would see it. Is that not your understanding?
There is, yes, there's sort of three chats. One is like an all free for all, everybody can chat all together. There's private chat, which could be between student to student, and then there can be from student to host.
Okay.
You can leave the student to host chat feature on. My caution with that is, though, that kids, they're going to send you messages constantly on the chat feature, and it's very distracting. If you're in the middle of a thought and you're trying to finish something and then it pops up and tells you, you're going to switch your attention to that. It's going to interrupt what you're trying to say.
Okay.
What I usually tell my students is, look, if you have to go to the bathroom, if you need to, like if somebody's ringing the doorbell and you have to go answer whatever, just turn off your video and mute yourself. Go do what you need to do. You don't need to tell me every time something happens to interrupt the class. But they use chat for that usually, like whatever.
Gotcha.
So I would say you should turn chat off or altogether, or really be kind of vigilant about not letting it be something that becomes a distraction.
Okay, great. And real quick, the last thing, are there not any liability issues we need to be concerned about when making recordings with students' audio or video present?
That's a good thing that you'll want to talk with your administrators about. We tell our families that we are recording, and we're recording for these purposes, whatever those purposes are, and that we tell them that they're sort of signing off, that you'll probably tell them we're not using this for marketing purposes. We're not going to turn into a virtual school. It's my guess most of your schools aren't going to turn into virtual school. We're just using it for the absentee or remedial help necessary, or just to make sure that you know that it's always being recorded and it's a safety feature. If they're really uncomfortable with it, then your administrator might need to have a conversation with that family about what to do about that. It might be that they need to watch the recordings separately, then they won't, so that they kind of audit the class in a way afterwards or something. But that is a good question. Some parents are going to have different comfort levels, but that's why you want to raise the issue and tell them that you will be recording for those two reasons.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Larry, it looks like you have a question.
Yes, this is just to clarify something you said earlier about how you sign up for an account.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that each individual teacher that will be using Zoom sign up for their own Zoom account, or should the school sign up for an account?
That's a good question. The school needs to probably contact Zoom, and you'll want to get the more licenses you have in an account, the better rate that you get per license. So the school will need to establish an account with Zoom, and then they'll need to get a separate license for every teacher. Does that make sense?
Yes. And so what's the best way to contact them? Is that online, or is that something you call them about?
I would, on zoom.us, they're going to have a contact us, and that you could start the conversation right there. They have an amazing resource section on their team, and they will get back to you very, very quickly. So
Okay.
they'll get back to you very soon, especially if they know that that you need help. They know that this is an urgent situation for most people.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Sure. You'll also want to, what we do is we create, so there's the account that the school has, right? And then every teacher gets their own license. For every teacher, we create a different Zoom meeting ID for every single class that teacher has. And the reason for that, and I know that sounds like, well, it's getting very complicated, but the reason for that is that my formal logic students have one Zoom meeting ID number, and the algebra kids can't find their way into my class unless they put in that Zoom meeting ID number. Does that make sense to everybody? Especially if you're going to have classes coming you're going to be hosting classes back to back, just like some of you got here about 15 minutes early waiting for me to start the meeting. Your kids are going to come 15 minutes early, and then you're going to have a class that swells from 15 to 45 or whatever it might be, because kids are coming into that Zoom room. So you might want to create different, within any teacher's license, a different classroom number for every single course that they teach, just to kind of keep kids separated a little bit, and you don't end up having, kids coming into your classroom without you being ready for them, if that makes sense. It looks like Leslie has a question. Leslie Collins? Yeah?
There we go. Sorry. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry. It took me a while to find the unmute. Thanks for all you're doing, Joelle. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to confirm, as you're recording this, would you also make this available? Because I have people who wanted to attend but couldn't, and this has been an excellent training. I really appreciate all of it.
Yes, I should say, since everybody's probably here now, this will probably go longer than an hour now, actually. That's fine. I will be passing out the recording. I will pass out my slides, and I'll give you my email address. So if you have any questions about that, anything else, you can follow up with me afterwards. I see that Harry and is it Salah from Covenant Dallas both have questions, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to just move on to the next slide, and please write down your question, and then please email me with whatever question you just thought of, and I will respond to it after I send out the email to everybody. Let's see here. All right. So you've got the platform downloaded. I would really encourage everybody, experiment with screen sharing, not right now. Learn to help students problem solve their technology problems, practice accessing Zoom recordings and sharing with students. Basically what you want to do is, you've got a Zoom account. Everybody is quarantined in their homes for the next 2 weeks, right? And for all of the rest of today, set up Zoom meetings with your parents, with grandparents, for your kids, and tell your neighbor how to download Zoom. Host just some friends on Zoom and play around with it. You want to practice, because they're going to have problems logging on. Practice helping them solve their problems. Okay, you're going to want to share your screen. You're going to want to try to annotate something, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. You can't really break it, and you need time to practice. So just share the Zoom meeting information with whoever you can, and just start practicing, so that you're not as cold, just starting cold turkey with your students when they come to your classroom. Okay, let's see here. So I'm going to give you, these are just some tips and tricks that I found along the way for you to think about. Look for evidence that some students are going to be disengaged, and Zoom can help with that. There's a couple of things to think about with that. First of all, do you see the light on my face changing every time I toggle between my sharing screen and my not sharing screen? You probably can, and that's because Zoom has a black background, and the other screens that I'm looking at usually have white backgrounds, like your web browser. Google, most web pages are bright white backgrounds, and you'll have something like this when I switch to looking at, you can see my face got brighter, right? And now a little bit darker, just a tiny bit. That means if you see a kid's face changing with light and dark, that means that they have put up another screen on top of the Zoom screen. They're still got the camera pointed at them, and they think you can't tell that now there's like surfing the web, and you'll never know. Okay, you can, those little kind of indicators, kids who wear glasses, you can see a reflection in their glasses of what's on the screen in front of them. If you've got a student who, you know, if you see the light changing in the glasses and you haven't done anything to your screen, that means they're putting up a different screen on top of yours, okay? If you are doing a share screen, you will have you could click on manage participants, which will be down at the bottom of your screen. And if you keep that little box up off to the side, if you're sharing your screen and you've got that manage participants piece up, any student who doesn't have Zoom up as their top layer on their screen, a little clock icon will come up after 30 seconds. And you'll be able to tell that they have had something else on top of your screen for like at least 30 seconds or more. And so you can kind of look at it that way. Okay, so just be on the lookout. There's the temptation to be a little bit disengaged. It doesn't have to be that way. You can kind of make a joke about it. I tell my students that Zoom has these little like tips for me so that I can help, you know, tell when they are engaged and not engaged. And that usually they're kind of like, oh, wait, what? They don't really know the full limits of what Zoom can do and what Zoom can't do. You don't have to tell them that they can, the little clock only pops up when you're screen sharing. You know, if you tell them that they have indicators for when they're not paying attention to the Zoom level, you'll get kids saying, I just want you to know that I'm taking notes on using Word right now, and that's why the little clock might come up, but I'm paying attention in class, right? You just want to put the fear of Zoom in them, okay? Put the fear of Zoom in them. You can mute audio whenever you need to, and you can mute video whenever you need to. You're going to have kids on their cell phones walking around and everybody's going to get seasick, right? Because they can walk around. Tell them to find a space and, you know, and sit down and just stay put for a little while. Also ask them to watch their background. You don't want to see dad walking by without a shirt on, right? Because he's on his way to the bathroom or something first thing in the morning, okay? And watch your background too. Make sure you're in a situation where you're not going to be in a high traffic area. Also tell your kids, points for trying, but don't take us with you to the bathroom. Okay, I say that only because that actually has happened. I had a very conscientious student, apparently didn't want to miss a word of formal logic class, and took us with him. I didn't know where he was walking because, you know, it just looked like the hallway at first, and he went to a room. And then I noticed that we were in the bathroom. I saw the shower curtain, and I realized nothing good needs to happen in here that we need to see, right? So I muted his video and I turned off his audio as well. Just remind them, these are private moments and way TMI, right? We don't need to know. We don't need to know when you go to the bathroom. Avoid having the camera blinded by sunlight. People will look like they're in the witness protection program if you don't, okay? If the camera, if it's just works just like your eyeball, if I had a window behind me and the bright light from the window was coming right into the Zoom, into the camera, it would, the aperture on the camera would close a little bit, it would correct for that, and all you'd see is a dark screen from me, and it would look like I'm in the witness protection program. Your students will do that too. Everybody likes to sit around a window, in front of a window, just make sure the window's not behind them or close the blinds or something like that, okay? Breakout rooms. Breakout rooms are fantastic if you want to do little small like group discussions, work on a math problem together, that kind of thing. But Zoom only records where the host is. So none of those breakout rooms are recorded and you can't see the breakout rooms when you're not in the breakout rooms. So don't leave the kids alone for too long in there without a really, really like specific project that they should be working on that has deliverable results. Okay, if you just send them in there to talk, they will talk for about 30 seconds and then they'll start talking about something else and you'll bring them back and you won't get any, it's not the same thing as if they were just in a breakout room in the back of your room because you can still hear them and you can still see them in the back of your room. With Zoom breakout rooms, you can't see and you can't hear unless you visit. And you can visit, you can pop, you know, pop into each one if you want to, but every time you pop into one, you're leaving all the others. So just know the limits of a breakout room and what, like maybe using them sparingly, you know, that kind of thing. I already talked about gallery view versus speaker view. The Zoom whiteboard, which you can use to annotate on like a regular whiteboard, it's okay. It's not my favorite tool that Zoom has, and there's two limitations to it. One is if you write on the Zoom whiteboard, which is there, which I would encourage you to do, and we'll talk about how to do that in a second with like a Wacom tablet or whatever. As soon as you turn off the screen share and you come back to the class so that you can see everybody again, if you go back to the whiteboard, everything you wrote is gone. So it only preserves what you're sharing if it's absolutely right there in that one moment. And then as soon as you toggle back to your whole class, it'll be erased. The other thing is there's a little bit of lag and drag with it when you write as well. It's just not as smooth as other options are. A very easy solution though is if you have Microsoft Office, and a lot of people do, or Pages, there's a draw feature on Microsoft on any Word document page. So if you open up a Word document, if you have a relatively new version of Microsoft, now if it's a 1994 version, I can't help you. But if it's a relatively new version of Microsoft Word, okay, there should be a draw feature at the top of it. And if you click on, there's like a little pen that says draw. If you click on it, then you can just write on that piece of paper. And then no matter what you're doing with the page, whether you're sharing screen or not sharing screen, when you come back, it'll still be there, okay? So just keep that in mind that you can write on a Microsoft screen share piece. So that's just something to know about the Zoom Whiteboard. Let me see here. Okay. I'm gonna keep going here just for a quick second. Again, all those tips will be shared with you on the slides when I share. I already told you students don't need to have a Zoom account. They do not need to have a laptop or a desktop. They can use a phone, an iPod, or a tablet of some kind, though the computer is really best. Do keep in mind if you're screen sharing and somebody's phone is this big and you are putting up a piece of text on that phone, it's going to be really tiny for them to see. So since most kids are probably going to use a phone, an iPod, or a tablet of some kind, just kind of be mindful about what you're sharing, what kind of information you're sharing on the screen. I have the luxury of knowing most of you probably are tuning in with a laptop. And so your screen's a little bit bigger and I can share different kinds of things. My slides would be very different if I knew that the audience that I had was looking at a screen this big. So just be mindful of your audience and the limits that they might have. Okay, so how to create dynamic online classes and how to simulate this in-person class when you're hosting classes online. Here's some of the pros. Everybody gets a front row seat in an online classroom. Everybody is this far away from the camera, right? Nobody is going to be tucked behind 4 rows of students and way back there. If they're on, they're going to be phone distance, laptop distance, or camera distance away. That's great news for an online classroom. Okay, and just be mindful of the fact then that you can read facial expressions very easily. You can, make sure that you kind of warm things up a little bit with, talking to them and everything. They all know each other anyway, so you're not in the same boat I'm in when I start a class from scratch at the beginning of the year, and I've got a kid in Ghana and one in Israel and one in Pennsylvania in my class, right? Your kids all know each other. So just, kind of capitalize on the relational aspect of it and, just use the fact that they're all close by. That'll be really helpful for you. I'm going to go ahead and give you a couple of ideas here for Wacom tablets and Siteboard. So let me just pull this up for you really quickly. Wacom tablets and Siteboard. Wacom tablets are basically a stylus, and I'm going to share a different page with you real quickly. Here we go. This is just on Amazon. I don't know what your teachers are providing or what your administrators are providing for you. There's less expensive options than that $69.95. This one right here, this Wacom Intuos Draw Creative Pen and Tablet is the one that we get for all of our teachers. I would recommend that you get something like this if you want to do annotating. It's really difficult to annotate with your mouse on PDFs on on a whiteboard that you're using or that Word document or anything. It's much easier if you get a Wacom tablet. If you have an iPad already and you already have an iPad pencil or a different kind of tablet that already has a pencil, you should be able to connect that using a USB port on your computer to be able to connect those two, and you can use that. So don't get anything new if you already have something like that. But this is a relatively inexpensive feature that you can use. It sits, you'll see here, there's no screen. That the person is, that you don't write on a screen the way you do an iPad. You write on this black piece here, and then it shows up on your screen. Okay, so there's a little bit of hand-eye coordination that you might have to practice with in that you're looking straight ahead and you're writing on this tablet that's down beneath you with the stylus. Okay, it's kind of like for those of you who, and I'll probably be dating myself here, but remember when you took your typing class back in college, or back in high school, and I went to high school in the 90s, so we had typewriters and not computers. The idea was that you weren't supposed to be looking down at your fingers, right, to watch the typing. You're supposed to learn where, like, how to type and by feel, and then you were looking at the paper or at the screen. It's the same kind of thing you'll have to practice with any kind, one of those tablets, because you're going to want to be looking up ahead when you're doing the writing, and then learning how to write on the stylus that won't actually show anything. Okay, it doesn't populate the way it does like on a tablet. That is a relatively inexpensive way to get you a stylus, so you might want to think about that. The other thing that you might want to consider is, especially if you are a math teacher, anybody who wants to see kids being able to write with some frequency, is a Siteboard. And again, this will be on the slides that I sent to you. It's just siteboard.com. Siteboard is something that your school might be able to purchase for you as a teacher. So the school would get an account. It's the same kind of thing as Zoom. The school gets the account, the teachers get the licenses. The teachers could then invite students into their Siteboard room, okay? What this means is if your kids have a stylus, if your kids if you can ask them to get a stylus as well, for math, for example, the teacher would be able to see all of the different Siteboards assigned to his or her students, and you could watch them doing their math problems, like as if you sent everybody to the whiteboard all at one time in the front of your classroom. Okay, so if you're trying to teach math, and if it's important to you to be able to see the kids actually doing math problems, or to be able to watch their handwriting or something like that, you might want to ask families to get a Wacom tablet of their own, or use an iPad of some kind, and then the teacher can have this Siteboard account where she can see all of the whiteboards assigned to her class all at one time, and she can watch all the kids doing that assignment. This is our teachers find this to be preferred over letting the kids have screen sharing or giving them a remote access to their computer and sharing a screen and writing on a whiteboard that way. So it's just, if it's a 2-week thing, maybe we don't ask parents to go get a $49 Wacom tablet. If it's going to be all the way till the end of the year thing, maybe it's really important that they be able to do that. And so you might want to talk to your administrator about, whether or not students need to get that as well. Another piece that you'll want to think about is, how are students going to turn their assignments in? So if you are creating assignments, I know that some folks are using their LMS to post assignments and collect assignments. Some folks are using Google Classroom. Some folks are using, I think there's like a Microsoft network of some kind that you can post assignments and receive assignments as well. Some people are just receiving them via email addresses to their teachers. However you're going to be able to send and receive assignments, you're going to want parents to have an easy way to turn their students' assignment into a PDF. There are free PDF translators as apps that they make for phones and tablets. And so just you might want to do a little bit of research to figure out which ones you want to assign to your parents. That way they can sort of put their phone or their tablet over the assignment. They're essentially taking a picture of it, but instead of all of the detail that comes through on a picture, it saves it as a PDF, as a black and white PDF. It's a lot less memory, and then they can just send you those files much more easily. For teachers, if you have a stylus and they're sending you, if you have that Wacom tablet or an iPad, if they send you a digital file as a PDF, you don't have to print, this is my printer back here, you don't have to print everything off and then handwrite on it and then turn your own PDFs and then send it back to the student. If you have a stylus, you can actually pull up the PDF on your computer. You can use your stylus to actually just write on the PDF and hand mark everything, save it with the additions onto the PDF, and give it back to the student that way. That is probably going to be the most efficient way for you to mark students' papers and get them back to them with feedback on their papers. Otherwise, it's going to be a labor-intensive process with printing out every paper, everything that they send in, sitting down and handwriting with pen and paper on everything, scanning everything back into the printer or your scanner at home, creating digital documents of all of the things that just got scanned, and then returning it to the students. Okay, so if you can have a stylus for yourself at a minimum, then you can usually mark those papers on the PDFs when they come in, and that'll save you a lot of turnaround time. I think for a lot of students and teachers and administrators, one of the big concerns is what's going to happen to our community? What's going to happen to like the kind of the feedback and the ability to really have a relational connection? If you're able to still give back good, thoughtful responses to your students that way and in a timely fashion, that's going to close that gap a little bit. And here's something else that you can do. I do this with almost all of my papers, any of my big papers that I would, like when I did rhetoric papers for my students. You can use Zoom for more than just hosting your class. You can, when nobody else is there, you can record yourself. So what I would always do is I would get somebody's paper that I just marked up. I would make a recording of myself walking through that paper. Hey, Cass, I'm taking a look at your paper. I just wanted to go over these points with you one at a time. And you can give them that kind of verbal feedback. Then when you return the paper to them, give them the paper with all the markups and that private Zoom recording that they can listen to, and they can hear you going through their paper. I really love the way that you did this. This was fantastic. I know we talked about how to do this on your paper. Figurative language really came through here. It was spectacular. Or, Joey, it looks like you're still really struggling with this math problem. It looks like you forgot to carry that negative all the way through on these problems. That seemed to be a mistake that you were making. Maybe let's have you try these again and really focus on that this time, right? Just short little videos that walk through the feedback that you're giving them can close that relational gap pretty significantly, and they'll really appreciate it. The best parent feedback I've ever gotten was when I started giving feedback to my students that way. They really, really appreciate that. So I wouldn't say to do that for every assignment, but you might want to do it for special assignments, bigger assignments. You might also want to do it just if there's any, I know I saw that you were really trying to participate. I know that it's hard for you because, you want to come out of your shell. I know how, that's difficult. You did a great job today. 30-second video to your students, world of difference in how they feel about coming back the next time. So just remember that communication is your friend, and that you've got all of these resources now that you might not have thought about having. One of the big things that teachers like to do is create Socratic discussion, right? And that can still be done in our classrooms. You'll want to make sure that I love that poem by Robert Frost, The Secret Sits in the Middle. We dance around and suppose, but it sits there and it knows what it is, right? You can still toss out a really good question to a reading that you have been doing. Give that long pregnant pause if you need to. Give students an opportunity to really think about what they want to say. Engage with them. Don't just turn it into a lecture like I'm doing right now. Give them lots of opportunity to think and to engage and create that space for them so that those Socratic discussions can still be really vibrant. And lastly, I would say, well, two final things on this point. Be available for office hours. One of the things that you can do is also post, not just when your classes are, but there might be a particular day and time where you would be available for students to sort of email you and say, I need some special one-on-one help with, Mrs. Hodge. And then they can kind of come into your room at a specific time. Office hours doesn't have to mean a whole hour. That just means when your hours are available. It could be a 10-minute conversation. It could be 20. But let them know that you're available if they're struggling, if they have questions, that kind of thing. One final thought on this point is about this kind of a classroom. Most of you teach in bricks and mortar schools and not at an online school because you honestly believe that bricks and mortar schools do a better job of teaching kids than online schools. And I'm the director for an online school, and I'm here to tell you I agree with you. If every kid had a great local classical school, I would say go to that great local classical school. But not every kid does. And in this case, you don't have that opportunity either because schools have been closed. So just keep in mind that if you are one of those people sitting there and you're thinking, I just hate this. I absolutely hate that we have to do this. It's not going to be the same. It's going to be, we're not going to be able to do the things that we normally do. Just know that nobody's asking you to change your mind about that. You don't have to change your philosophy about the best way that education is. We're trying to make lemonade out of lemons, and you can do this in a really dynamic way if you want to, and just try to think about how to be as creative as possible. the best teachers in an in-class bricks and mortar school are fantastic online teachers because you're creative, you understand classroom dynamics, you understand how to problem solve, and you're going to be able to connect with those kids whether it's this way or any other way. Okay, so just keep that in mind, that probably nobody's going to be trying to woo you onto online teaching after this. You don't have to change your profession. Just try to make the best of it for what it is, and it'll be fantastic, you know, as far as an online dynamic classroom. Share your screen. I'm going to talk about a classroom liturgy here in a minute about what that can look like, but share your screen, share music, share great art, you know, share interesting problems and puzzles, listen to podcasts together if you can in class. This can be really interesting. You can show movie clips. One of the teachers that we have that I was talking to said that he's planning on sharing the 10 minutes of The Princess Bride at the beginning of every one of his class sessions, because everybody loves that movie. It's fantastic, right? He's just going to share 10-minute clips of The Princess Bride just to get his class started every time, as just a, or maybe at the end or something. Be creative. Think about fun things you can do with your kids that involves this online education, this online opportunity you have to educate. And just remember, things can go back to normal as soon as they can. All right, any sort of high-level questions about anything I just said? Because I'll share the sort of a classroom liturgy with each of you.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Would you put the screen up again that was the last one that you, I think it was the one before last. I've been trying to photograph them and I didn't get that one quick enough.
Sure. Well, just remember, I'm going to send these to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I would say just, if you can just hang tight, I'll make sure that everybody gets it when we're, after this is all over.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that my video isn't shared. I have foster children, and so I can't have them on video. So my question is, can students take screenshots? You mentioned the fact that that the whiteboard disappears.
Yeah.
When is that something like, can you say to your students, okay, I'm switching back over to my screen right now, take a screenshot? Is that possible, or is there that capability?
Oh yeah, you can absolutely do that. That's fine. You can take screenshots, but the idea is that you might want to take like notes for the whole class, or you might want to have a PDF of a page up on your, like, of a book that you're kind of annotating and reading closely together. And as soon as you toggle back from Zoom, it might be gone that way. So you want to, you just kind of want to think about what you might want to have as like sort of an ongoing notes that you want, especially, and if you're using Word, for example, and you take those notes on Word or anything else, you could save that as a PDF and even share it with your students afterwards. But you won't be able to do that with Zoom.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Sure. Let's see here. Harry, did you have a question? We've got a little bit more to go through, but go ahead.
Yeah, I did have a question, and that's how you deal with families that have multiple children, so they might need to connect to multiple classes at the same time. How do you deal with that?
That's a good question. So they all need to have their own smartphone, iPod, tablet, or computer. They're not going to be able to use the same device. So they will each need to have their own device for those things, for each one of the classes that they have. You will want to separate them into different rooms possibly, or a lot of kids use these, you know, just a simple headset pair, which has a microphone on it. It's almost like a gaming headset. If I put it on, I'll look like an airline pilot, so I'm not going to do that. I'm too proud. But students can and often do use their headsets for those classes, and then that usually helps. But everybody will need to have their own device. Let's see here. I'll take one more question for right now. Is it Sala? Is that how? I'm sorry, I'm probably butchering your name.
Yeah, it's totally fine. I had two sort of quick questions. Does Zoom take attendance? And also within that attendance, does it log how long the students were part of Zoom?
So you, Zoom is not going to take attendance for you. You would have to actually set up a webinar, which is more expensive than just having a Zoom classroom. So your administrators probably aren't going to get you a webinar. They'll probably just get you a Zoom account. So you'll probably have to use an LMS or your SIS to take attendance in some way. The other thing that you could do is use the Zoom messaging feature to let whoever your administrator is know who is absent in your class, and they can keep an official record of that. You might have to just email them separately. And you'll have to tell families, you'll have to tell them what your expectation is. I mean, the first couple of days, as far as tardies go, you might want to be a little bit gentle and, give them a little bit of a learning curve to get there on time. Certainly if somebody's 45 minutes late and you haven't heard a word from them, that's probably unacceptable. But if they're 3 minutes late and they just had a class right before you, you can probably figure out how to handle tardies. And then dropping off early, it's absolutely inappropriate for students, unless parents have told me that the student needs to drop off, that the student would leave my class early. They're not allowed to do that.
And then the secondary question was, any thoughts on summative or formative individual assessments like quizzes, tests, et cetera?
Great question. That is all going to have to be managed through your SIS, or however you're getting your assignments out to students. So students, you've got two possible ways of doing this here. If you were still meeting on the same class schedule, and I know some people are going to a modified class schedule, instead of 5-day-week classes, they're going to move more to like a university model kind of idea, like 2-day-a-week kind of thing. So your in-class time is going to be prized, and you might not want to use that in-class time for test taking anymore. That does mean that students are going to be on their honor to take their tests at home, and you might need to ask parents to monitor those tests. I have found that most of my students are really responsible, and they really do take tests, and they don't use external resources, they don't cheat, what have you. If you'll have to determine your comfort level with some of that. So you might want to ask parents to monitor tests at home. You could, if you're not changing the frequency of your class structure, you could still give them time to take classes in class, and then they need to take their picture and scan it to you and turn it into you right after class. You can there are some platforms, like we use Schoology. There are some LMS platforms that actually have a test making feature within the LMS. And so then you can tell them that it's a timed, like you can set how long they have to take the test. You can tell them when the test is open and when it closes, and then they have to take it within that time frame. That's a lot more work for the teacher to go take a test that's already been made and then type all the questions in and create all those settings for everything. It depends on whether or not that feels like it's worth it to you. What I usually do is give a PDF of the test, which they print off at home, and then they take the test. If they don't have a printer at home, then they can type up their answers and turn it into me. And we've just discussed with the parents, like, look, this is, your kids are on their honor to do this. I'm expecting they're going to do a good job. It only hurts them if they don't. That's how we do it at our school. All right. I will just talk briefly a little bit about a liturgy for your class. You're going to want to try to create some kind of a rhythm. Create a rhythm for your class. So open with prayer, talk with them about what they did over the weekend, share pictures, share a poem, invite them to learn a poem together and start reciting it together as this goes on. Come up with, assign somebody to, be the person who shares a narrative or, a poem that they wrote, or give them the responsibility to enhance the class and make sure that it's lovely and beautiful in some way. It could be music that they want to share. It could be a painting that they want to share, and not just put it up and then leave it, but have a little bit of a conversation about it. You can recite the doxology together. You might want to celebrate the church calendar together. I mean, we're all going through Lent right now. So, is there part of the church calendar that you might want to weave into as part of, is there a reading? Is there, something else that you might want to weave in? So think about how you might want to intersect the church calendar with whatever's going on in your class, and make sure that you engage with each student personally. Connect with every single one of them, and whether it's in class by asking and calling on a question, but just, how are you doing this? I know you're at home with all 6 of your brothers and sisters. How's that going? That kind of thing. Make sure that you keep up with the personal engagement and look for ways to begin, have a middle, and have an end of your class that feels like a lovely rhythm that you have established and that it was thoughtful. I know we're all kind of putting this together, and the details and adornments might feel like they're secondary, and they are. to a degree, but that first impression of the kids when they come in for the first time and it feels like you had really thought this through and you wanted to create an experience for them that, you know, wasn't just slapped together last minute, they'll really appreciate that. I'm going to share here, and again, this will be in the slides that I share with you when I provide everything to you on my follow-up email. This is the really quick and simple way that I provide login information for everybody. You'll have the Zoom meeting ID number. It's more than three. It's more than 3 digits long. I just put 3 X's there, but it's usually, I want to say 3, 6, it's usually about 10 digits long. And those are just the simple instructions. I mean, that's it. That's all you have to do to provide somebody to log into Zoom. If you use the share feature for Zoom, it'll have like how to log in internationally, how to join by phone, how to, you know, all kinds of stuff. Most of your students are going to be logging in through the computer or through their iPod, through the app or whatever. All they're going to need is the Zoom meeting ID number if it's through the app. And if they're logging in for the very first time to any kind of web Zoom classroom, this is all that I give them. And again, this will be provided to you when I share my slides with you. This orientation session, I cannot stress enough how important it is to schedule that orientation session. If you're an administrator, I would encourage you to pick out everybody's home rooms and make sure that everybody can go to a homeroom meeting, like where your kid would normally check in for attendance, that teacher, right? Everybody host a Zoom orientation meeting. Give the parents an opportunity to come in, make sure the students can come in, make sure you can see everybody, that they know how to turn their videos on. One of the classic problems is for some reason kids get this very quickly, parents don't. Down at the bottom of your Zoom screen on the bottom left, you'll see a little microphone icon. It says mute, and there's a little arrow next to it. The arrow gives you options. A lot of parents don't think, adults aren't as intuitive about these things as kids are. The arrow there, you can click on it, you're not going to break anything, and it'll let you choose which microphone you use. And in some cases, parents don't have a microphone chosen, or they have the wrong microphone chosen. So you just want to pick the right microphone. The bottom left hand also has a little video, like a video camera icon, and there's a little, you know, arrow next to that as well. You'll want to use that arrow to click and see what other options do you have as far as video cameras. Sometimes the video doesn't work simply because they are picking the wrong camera, and that camera is, you know, the laptop's closed or whatever it is, and it can't work. So just make sure that they do that. Sometimes it's more challenging than that, but 9 times out of 10, if you can just point them to something down at the bottom of the screen, you can help them out. But that's something you want to go over in orientation. You don't want to be going over that first day when you're having a class session. That's a really good time to reiterate things like to parents, here's my email address and here's my cell phone number. If you're having problems, right, you know, during these first few days, don't suffer in silence. Text me, tell me, call me. I can walk you through it right there, right in real time. So just provide lots of help for them, explain the expectations that you have for the students. A lot of parents might be at work, and some of them will be at home, but some of them, like my husband, is still at work today. I don't know how long that'll last, but you know, parents might not be in the house. So reiterate to parents that they are responsible, like what their responsibility is and what your responsibility is. Just make sure that that's all very clear for them. Let's see, remind them of the weekly days and times of your course. Provide a central location where they can find that list of all of the Zoom meeting IDs that they will need to be able to have, so that they're not scrambling to figure out where to go for any class. Explain your policy for absences and tardy arrivals and, you know, early dismissals. That should not be happening with any frequency. Explain how you're going to communicate assignments. It's not enough that the kid understands, because kids, if they forget to turn in an assignment, they will throw you under the bus. It will be that Mrs. Hodge didn't put it where she said she was going to put it, okay? And that there's a confusion about where to put it, and if the parent doesn't know, they can't follow up. So explain to the parents how the assignments are going to be provided, the steps that are involved with turning them in to you, whatever you and your school decide, and make sure that the parents understand that too, so that they can be following up with their student and there isn't like an unfortunate miscommunication. I said provide your email address and your phone number, and then the PDF form as well. So we've already talked about that, about taking and doing scans on PDFs. The last thing to do is launch your class. After you've gone through all of that prep, it's time to launch your class. And it really can be pretty easy once the steps are in place. Some of it you're going to need for your administrators to help you with, and some of it you're going to need you'll just need to be proactive about thinking through how you want to problem solve some things. So that's really it. Once you get some of the detail work in place, it's not too hard to problem solve after that. I know I was talking like a mile a minute. I'm sorry. It's 1:04. I wanted to make sure we got through everything. I said it would be more than 30 minutes. It has been. I just want to share one more thing for you guys. This is from Classical Academic Press. You guys can, and then I'll take any questions you want. Classical U is free for 3 weeks. So if you don't have anything else to do, which I know is ridiculous for me to even say, when you're done doing everything that you need to do, if you're a teacher with some unexpected time, go to classicalu.com. If you enter this code 3 weeks, you will have Classical U free for 3 weeks. This is an opportunity for you to do whatever, explore, take classes, whatever you'd like to do as well with all that time that you have on your hands. With that being said, I'll take any remaining questions. Feel free to jump off if you need to. And remember, I will send you the recording. I'll send you the slides, and I'll give you my email address. All right? Heather, you've been waiting so patiently. What's your question? Heather Johnson.
Sorry, I already asked my question.
Oh, very good.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'll lower your hand. Jennifer Armstrong, what's your question?
Hi. So I'm not sure we're using Zoom or not, but I have to try and put together an online debate. Any thoughts on how Zoom may or may not be a good tool for that?
So Jennifer, I'm having a really difficult time hearing you. I think your Wi-Fi connection might be a little bit spotty. If you would just email me a question, and I will try to.
Not working.
Yeah, yours isn't working. If you could just email me your question, I will promise I'll respond to you when I get your email, because I can't hear you very well. I'm sorry. Daisy, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to see if you could quickly review how to grade the PDFs without having to print it.
Sure. So if you have that Wacom tablet, and in my case, I have an iPad with an iPad pencil, but if you have a Wacom tablet, I was going to try to show you here real quickly, but it might take too much time. You would put so the students have given you an assignment, right? And you'll open that PDF on your computer, right? You'll want to get PDF readers usually have an annotate feature on them. If you use your stylus, you can go kind of like a mouse, right? You would click on the annotation feature on your PDF reader, and then you could write directly onto the PDF and just save it as a new PDF. So if the student turned it in, like J. Hodge, rhetoric, and then a date for what the class was, you might want to save it with the J. Hodge rhetoric and the date with your name, Mrs. So-and-so graded as the new name for that. And then the student knows that they're getting their graded assignment back. But if you use your PDF reader, you can take the stylus and you could go over and click on the annotate feature. You can write directly on the PDF and save it as a new PDF. And it will save with all of your marks on it. And then you can give them back that PDF with all of your annotation on it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
Sure. I see somebody, it looks like the name that is coming through is iPhone. I hope that your parents were kinder to you than that when they named you, but if iPhone has a question, you can ask your question.
I don't hear one. This is Bam. I have a question.
Okay.
Our classes are used to doing, teachers and students are used to doing a lot of choral responses, call and respond. Can you have all the kids unmute and do that? Does Zoom support that?
That's a good question. If we were all to do that, just because with the varying speeds of the Wi-Fi and video uploads and download speeds, it would sound like a cackle of hens. It would not be a beautiful thing to listen to. What I would recommend you doing though is that you ask everybody to do the recitation with you, leaving your voice being heard, but letting them stay muted. So they'll still hear one person and they'll be talking along with somebody, but that way they won't all have their voices on at the same time, and that they can still be chanting along with somebody else or reciting along with somebody else. And you can switch, who gets to do that. So, if it was my turn yesterday, maybe today is Marcus's turn. And so Marcus has the one that has his, himself unmuted. And that day he's the one that leads the class in doing that recitation, but everybody else leaves themselves muted, but still goes ahead and talks through it at the same time. That's what I would do.
Hello. Hi.
Here's iPhone.
I'm iPhone. My name is Bonnie Murray. It's interesting trying to do this on the phone, I have to tell you, but I had the same exact question that the gentleman that just asked you had the question, and that is when we do like chants or poems on teaching, my class something, can they all in unison, chant back? So you just answered it.
Oh, great. Good. Great minds thinking alike. And again, Salah, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Please tell me so I can stop butchering it.
No worries. It's Salah. I just wanted to say thank you. This was a great presentation. Really, really appreciated and super helpful. I was browsing the settings, and under video, I noticed that there's a wonderful option that says touch up my appearance.
Yes.
And so I figured I'd point that out for everybody because it makes me look more beautiful. So.
It does. Salah, you're a different man. No, touch up my appearance. That's two fun things. You can touch up your appearance. It just wipes away the years just right off. You look rested. It's wonderful. And the other thing is it gives you the option on the platform, on the downloaded platform, for you to have mirror, or to have so that you can see yourself the way you usually see yourself in the mirror, or the way that everybody else sees you. Okay, so if this is your first time on Zoom, if you take a good look at yourself, it could be that you feel like you look different, and that might be because your setting is not the mirror setting. And you might want to change that, because I think I look freaky backwards, even though I know that everybody else sees me that way. Okay, but you can play around with which way you want to see yourself. And then if it's really, really distracting for you to see yourself, what I was doing years ago when it was my first time doing this, and I was on camera for the first time, like all day long, and I chose not to go into like movie making for a reason. I don't want to see myself on camera all the time. I put a Post-it note over myself just so I wasn't distracted. And you might want to consider doing something the same for yourself. And this does remind me of one other thing. Teenagers and young children, okay, they are fascinated by the fact that they are on camera, okay, and you will get kids who are totally like looking around at like how they look. They forget that everybody can see them, okay. I don't know why that is, but just remind them, we can all see you. Please don't check yourself out. Go to the bathroom, look at yourself in the mirror if you need to, but try not to be too mesmerized by your own appearance. And you will also get kids who try to do funny things by reaching out to touch the camera. You'll get your nose pickers with the younger kids, okay? All kinds of stuff. Just, they'll do things to get attention because now they can see what everybody else sees all day, which is them, and it's fascinating. So just, talk that through. Also remember about what you want kids to wear from the head down to the waist. If you have a dress code and you don't want a bunch of spaghetti straps and cleavage showing, just because they're at home doesn't mean that we want to see everything that we don't normally want to see. Give them their, at least for the top half, give them a little bit of a dress code that they need to be mindful of, okay? We don't really care what they do from the waist down unless they get up and walk around, and then that's, anyway. Any other questions? It looks like Tiffany has a question.
Yes, and it may be simple enough just to recognize that currently I don't have a teacher account, so many of your scenarios and options that you've discussed, I don't have within my Zoom account that I do have. And so, for example, some of the chat features of turning off and on were not available in setting up my initial meeting that I'm doing a trial run this afternoon. But I'm assuming that those are unique to a classroom feature. And then the other part of that question was just in regards to, or not question, but comment was just regards to, thank you so much for everything you have done. This has been amazing.
Truly, my pleasure. Really, really my pleasure. Don't think another. Don't worry about it. I'm happy to do it. As far as the features go, just please remember this: Zoom video conferencing does not have a class. They didn't necessarily have a classroom in mind. What they had was basically like a GoToMeeting, a Skype, a conference, like a webinar kind of scenario in mind. So just remember that they didn't tailor all of the features for online classes. So they call it a host, they don't call it a teacher. They call it members and attendees, they don't call them students. So just know that you're gonna sort of take the tools that they've given you and you're gonna try to do your best to fit them into what we need as an online school.
Okay, so you're talking, these are still within the realm of meetings.
Yes.
Okay, but are any of the features different because you have a classroom account?
No.
Okay.
So, but if you have a pro account versus a basic account, that's where you'll get the more.
Okay.
And that's what the administrator will probably want to talk about. I think they're giving you the basic accounts for free in this, all hands on deck kind of scenario, but the pro account gives you a lot more control. The school will have to decide if they want to buy a pro account or not.
Right, thank you, because like I said, some of those turning off chat options and things was not available when I was setting up that meeting, and so I'm guessing that's a pro feature.
It probably is, and if it's a 2-week scenario, it probably isn't worth paying for pro accounts for everybody just so you can't have chat. Like you can manage it probably for 2 weeks. If it's going to be till the early June, you might want to talk about changing to pro accounts because that's a lot to manage.
Right.
Start testing.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure. David Ziegler.
Is Zeiger. There's no L. I was just going to say, you mentioned covering up yourself with a Post-it note, but if you're in gallery view and you hover over your image, there's the 3 dots, and one of the things is to hide yourself. So,
that's true.
So
although if you hide yourself that way, I think you hide it from everybody else.
Oh, really?
I didn't want everybody to not be able to see me. I just didn't want to see me. So if you click hide yourself, I think that you just become hidden to everybody. So you might not want to do that.
Am I hidden from everybody right now?
I can't tell where you are.
I'm not hidden from everybody. Okay, see, yeah, I just hid
You're not
myself.
hidden. It just says hide self.
Oh,
yeah.
And David also has a background going on Zoom, I think, right? You've got a
Yeah,
Zoom.
that's a background. That's not from Zoom.
Okay.
I'm supposed to give credit for it. It's a website called Digital Blasphemy, and he does desktop backgrounds, and they're free for educators to use for educational purposes. So
it's educational. Zoom also has a background that you can pick from their backgrounds if you have a pro account. So you can change, like you could do yours from the beach, if you wanted to. I just go with, I try to pick a beautiful setting that isn't distracting, that kind of thing, but totally up to you. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Anybody else? I don't see any other digital hands, but I'm happy to take any other questions.
I have a question, Joelle.
Yes.
I came in right at 12 and I do not have I don't have a chat option at the bottom. I use Zoom all the time for classes, and I usually have a chat and the hand, ability to raise the hand. I don't have either of those. Is that because there are so many participants that it just quit allowing that, or?
No, I turn chat off in all of my rooms so that that feature is not enabled. You should have a digital hand option because I have been looking at digital hands. So some of you are saying.
Yeah, I don't have that option, so I don't know what
the digital hand is only visible if I open up the participants window, and then in the participants window, it has the option to raise hand or not.
Oh, my participant window will open now. It wouldn't open like when it was over 200.
Okay.
So maybe I just came too late to be able to open it.
Maybe.
Sure. The other question.
Not be this big. Your classes will be probably
right.
up to 20.
Yeah.
it won't have that problem.
Yeah, the other question I have is when you create a personal video for one of your students, do you then get like a link to send to them for that? Is that a private link?
So you've got two ways to save. The Zoom, if you have it automatically record to the cloud, if you go down, well, you won't be able to look at it right now. Well, I guess you can, because you can, I don't know if you've got record option or not. You could probably ask me for permission to record right now. But if you're the host, you will just be able to pick how to record. You'll have two options. It'll say record to this computer, in which case you'll just record it to the computer that you're on. Do know that Zoom videos up to an hour take a lot of memory. They do take a lot of memory. You might not want to have that happen onto your hard drive. If you want to have them, you can pick where they might go. They could go to like a Google Drive or something like that, but you're going to want to clear that out. Like my Google Drive, the free one that I have, only takes 5 gigs, and I want to say about 10 videos will probably wipe out just about all of the memory that you have in your Google Drive. So you're just going to want to kind of keep track of where you're recording. What I would recommend you doing is just have it record to the cloud, okay? So if you have them record to the cloud, what that means is you can go into zoom.us, log in as yourself, and there's a tab there for recordings. And all of your recordings will end up there, and they'll process there, and you can share them from there. So you've got several options, but I would recommend, there's gonna be, if you're hosting 5 classes a day, or 4 classes a day, and they're each an hour long, you're going to use up just about all the memory you have someplace with, you know, these recordings pretty quickly. Zoom, I think, will start emptying that cache over time. So you want to tell parents and students, these aren't going to be recorded for forever. You'll probably have a certain amount of time, and you'll want to check out what your Zoom account tells you as for how long the Zoom cloud will hold on to any recording. It'll certainly hold on to it for a couple of weeks. But if a student comes to you at the end of May and was like, hey, you remember that class we had back on March 18th? Can I get that recording from you? It might be gone at that point. So just know that you'll want to read about whatever level of account you have, and then see what the recording storage options are. We also upload all of our recordings to Vimeo, which is a cloud-based video storage platform that you can also use if you want to upload all of your videos to Vimeo. Then you can password protect them, and only people with certain passwords can view them, that kind of thing. So that's another option as far as video storage, long-term video storage. It looks like TinV is what it looks like on the nameplate, but I don't know.
D and Verso, sorry, Theron, first and last name. So I'm a kindergarten teacher, and this all sounds well and good for the upper grades and logic and rhetoric, but any quick tips for grammar teachers that?
Yes, I would recommend for grammar teachers, the recommendation would be to take your class and do it in small chunks. You want to keep those kids moving just like you would in your classroom. So you're going to want to have a sing time, maybe that lasts 5 or 10 minutes, and then give their little bodies time to wiggle. Then you're going to want to give them something else that they can do, and an opportunity to color or do whatever it is that they need to do, at their seat. And then you're going to want to put that away. And then you're going to want to give them an opportunity to, do some sort of like physical exercise. You're going to want to break this up into lots of mini chunks, because you're absolutely right. No kid should be in front of their computer and on a screen for all day. Okay, even at our Scholé Academy, we have a K-3 Mommy and Me class that we're going to unfold, and it's a 1 day a week for 45 minutes. I am not a proponent of little kids being on screen.
Right.
Also want to provide parents with extension exercises at home so that they can do a lot of it on their own with mom and dad. You might even want to create little videos of yourself that they can watch or parents can watch with them, that kind of thing, where you're singing or you're doing whatever, and then they can watch asynchronously and sing along as well. So you might want to tackle this entirely different than thinking of just bringing your regular classes onto online. Yeah. You're going to want to, if they are online, break it up into these little chunks, and then consider like 10 or 15 minute episodes that you record and share with your families, and let them kind of do it asynchronously with mom or dad.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Great question. And there just isn't, it's just hard for little kids. It is. Mm-hmm. It's really hard for them. Looks like Angela has a question.
Yes, thanks. I just wanted to verify that I'm seeing a total of 25 faces on my screen. Is that the max that a teacher would be able to see, or 24 plus yourself?
That's right. On one screen. You should see a little arrow off to the side that lets you scroll through. So that's as many as you're going to get.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else have a quick question? I have another meeting I have to go to at 1:30, so I will have to make this next question probably be the last one. No questions? Okay, so do give me a chance. This is a long video. It's going to take a long time for it to upload. It will not be imminent that you'll get an email from me, but you will get an email from me with the video and all the slides and my email address. Thank you so much for coming. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll do my best to answer them. Oh, I should say one more thing. Zoom. They have tried to think of almost every eventuality for a technological problem that you might have. And you don't have to go onto the Zoom site to get it. If you just do a Google search and you type in Zoom video conferencing and then whatever your question is, chances are a number of hits will come up and lots of even helpful videos for you to watch them walk you through it. They really have tried to give you a lot of resources, and that should probably be yours and the parents' sort of first line of defense if you don't have somebody in-house who's very sort of specialized in being able to help with Zoom video conferencing. But there's a lot of resources out there. All right. Thank you again for coming. Good luck, everybody. I'm praying for you all. Take care. Bye.